Hey, what is going on, everybody? Today we are going to be recreating the trim that was missing from the inside of this Newburgh dollhouse. So the very first thing you want to do is get all of your measurements for the piece of trim that you're trying to recreate. So in this case, I need this exact piece of trim for the inside of the dollhouse because all of these window trim pieces were missing. So I need to get every measurement, and I need to measure every space, every opening, and I want to try and get as exact as I can because what we're going for here is a seamless look. I really want all of the trim to be consistent and to match exactly what is existing on the dollhouse. Once you're confident in all of your measurements, take a direct photo of the piece that you're trying to replicate. Try and get it as head-on as possible and put it into some editing software. In this case, I am using Desktop Publisher. It's an old software, it's been around forever, and it's just one of my favorites. You can see the white piece in the background. That's actually a sheet of paper. It's 8.5 by 11 real-world measurements. So I put the picture into this software, and then I scale the picture to be exactly the measurement that I want it to be once it's created. So the black box that you see at the bottom, I've already measured that out to make sure that it is exactly the same measurement as the wood trim that's on the exterior of the house now. Now that we're recreating this archway here, it always takes a little finesse to get all of your angles right, and this is where you just have to kind of play around with it a little bit until it's perfect. I like to do like an overlay on the picture that I took. That's what I'm doing here, just to kind of see how those curves measure up, if they're perfectly spaced, or if any alterations need to be made. You can see this little blue bar that I've got here. I was using it for measuring. I wanted to make sure that the top of the curved part of the window is exactly the same dimension to the bottom of the window as it is on the dollhouse itself. Now that I've verified all of those measurements, I'm going to start framing this in. The pieces that I'm making now are exactly the same dimensions as the one that are on the original window. Now that that part's finished, I'm going to make some cutouts here. Basically what you're doing is just recreating a bunch of boxes because that's what the original window was. It's just a bunch of boxes with a curve on top, and you just have to make sure that all of your dimensions are the same. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm creating all of these little cutouts for the windows because once I put this into the laser cutter, it is going to read the black and white much better than any color. So I'm just trying to make all of my trim pieces black and all of the window cutouts white. Right now I'm just fine-tuning the interior curve of the window. I want all of the trim to be consistently the same dimension all the way around, which I determined was 1/4 of an inch. And I want to make sure that I've got this curve just right so that all of the trim in the curve is also 1/4 of an inch, just like it is on the square sections of the window. And now I'll just group all of these together and move them to the top, and it's ready to print out. So I moved it over here to my printer, and once it is printed, I'm just going to manually cut around the design that we've created. Now this step isn't absolutely necessary. If you're confident in your measurements and you're also confident that there's no sort of warping or bowing or anything on the original dollhouse structure, then you can really skip this step. All I'm doing is creating a template because I want to manually line it up so that I can have something to see, make sure that all of my measurements are correct so that I don't need to make any alterations once it's cut into wood, because I'm trying to eliminate a little bit of that wood waste. Now that our frame is cut out in paper, we can bring it into the house and make sure that it fits perfectly right where we want. Once you're satisfied with the way that it fits, you can move that design directly over to your laser cutter and cut it out on your wood. I always like to bring the piece in just to double check because I want to make sure that it's exactly how I want it to be. I've got to recut this same design, I think 3 more times for this house, so I want to make sure that it's perfectly lined up. And Because it's not fitting flush, I'm going to sand all of this extra paint that was on the window. I want to try and make it as flat and smooth as possible so that it gets a really nice flush fit. And now we have a perfectly flush fit, and I'm really happy with that fitment. So I'm going to take this trim piece back to my workbench and start sanding some of these burnt edges. Anytime you use your laser cutter, it burns the edges a little bit. I'm also going to prime it with an oil-based sealer. That seals in this wood tannin and keeps it from bleeding through any acrylic paint we put on for a top coat in the future. Alright, it is time for the final part of this window recreation. We're going to make the glass. So I like to trace around the window trim on this piece of clear acrylic that I'll be using for the glass. And this stuff is really easy to cut just with some heavy-duty scissors. So once all of my lines are made, I just cut it out with scissors. Alright, this turned out really good. Let's go see what it looks like on the house. While I had my oil-based primer out, I went ahead and put a coat on the area where I'm going to attach the window trim. I just wanted to block out any other stains or old paint residue. There it is, a perfect recreation of the window that would have originally come with this house. Now, I understand that not everyone has access to a laser, and if that's the case for you, the process is still the same, just substitute the laser cutting for cutting it out by hand. Thanks for checking out this video. Don't forget to drop me a comment, a like, and subscribe so you can stay up to date with the latest videos from this series. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Bearded Miniaturist and Facebook at The Bearded Miniaturist Studios.